Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Um, Thank you for joining us on this Thursday afternoon at our webinar. Please just tell us hello and where you're joining us from. The chat box is open. And in a few minutes, we'll get started. But for now, say hi and where you're joining us from. And I will start. All right. Bye, Jennifer. Hi, Jennifer from the USA. Nice to have you here. Anybody else wants to say hello? Hi, Megan from Botswana. Lovely to have you. We'll give everybody another minute or so before we kick things off. Hi, Hazel from Namibia, Echo Awards. Lovely to have you. Oh, hi, Laura from Pangolin, Africa. Hi, Anna from Discover Journeys in Uganda. Oh, hello, Kate from Hootspray. Oh, lovely to have you all join us today. We'll give it one more minute or a half, and then we'll get into today's webinar, which is one of these important ones, I think, for us to just learn a little bit more. Interestingly, just as a plug before we get settled in end of March, beginning of April, we did a niche tourism piece and Pangolin photographic safaris were featured in there about um, you know, ways to enjoy safari for conservation-minded individuals, which I thought was nice. Okay, and then after that, we're gonna kick things off. Thank you everybody for joining us this afternoon. Hi, Catherine from Cape Town on this Thursday afternoon webinar. Today's webinar is about pangolins and how all of us in the room, all of us in the industry, can play a part in really working together towards making sure that these species exist for future generations, not just for us. And I think it is a very important topic. And so, because I'm not an expert in the matter, we've got Toby German, who's going to take us through and who's joined by Laura. Toby has been living in South Africa for over 20 years, originally from the UK. He has marine zoology, studied marine zoology and zoology from Bangor University in Wales. He's the owner and director of Pangolin Photo Safari. And this is dedicated to catering for photographers of all levels of experience on safari in Africa and beyond. Toby has a passion for wildlife conservation and boundless enthusiasm for technology-driven marketing. And so without further ado, Toby, welcome. The virtual floor is yours.
Thank you.
And before you start, just to say the chat box is open for any questions, which we will address at the end of the webinar. So it's the Q&A box. Toby, over to you.
Well, hello, everybody, and thank you very much for the opportunity. My name, as we said, is Toby German, and I am one of the owners of Pangolin Photo Safaris and director of Pangolin Africa, which is supported directly by bed night contributions for anybody staying at our properties. $10 per person per night goes to supporting Pangolin Africa. I would also like to introduce my co-host. You can see on the screen here, this is a pangolin called Casino. Casino was a rescued pangolin. She was rescued in a sting operation in the car park of a casino in South Africa, who then went to a rescue and rehabilitation centre that we support. And this was her on the day that she was released back into the wild. So there we go, there's Casino. So in today, I'm going to talk to you about how we can get you to help us spread the word about pangolins throughout different facets of the tourism sector. So without further ado, we will get started. Right, let's see if we can do this. And let's see, there we go. So Pangolin Africa, we have 3 Ps, which sum up the work that we do: publicity, participation, and protection. Publicity is spreading the word about pangolins, helping to educate people about pangolins. Participation, we will touch on a bit later on. We have a system that we've developed called Pangolert, which helps people to report pangolin sightings in a secure way. So all of your clients, all of your guides, if you happen to come across a pangolin, we have a way, which I'll explain to you later on, how you can report those pangolin sightings as well. So to help us build up a distribution map and where we can focus our conservation efforts. And protection, like I said before, we support rescue and rehabilitation centres across Southern Africa in any way that we can, buying them vital equipment, giving them money for fuel to go and do rescues, for medical supplies, that sort of thing as well. And all of that comes out from generous donations from our clients. Whoops. I seem to be going backwards. There we go. So pangolins by numbers. In case you didn't know, there are 8 pangolin species in the world. There are 4 species in Africa. And we always say there are 2 types of people in the world: those who know what a pangolin is and those who don't. So we would like to change that into 1 type of person in the world who knows what a pangolin is. Pangolins by numbers. Those of us in the tourism sector will find this graph particularly interesting. This is a Google trend over time for the phrase, what is a pangolin? Like I said, we want to try and educate people as much as possible. And for those of us in the tourism sector, we will see that this massive spike, what is a pangolin, happened on the 22nd to the 28th of March in 2020 as COVID hit. And everyone started Googling, what is a pangolin? Because pangolins in the wet markets in Wuhan were linked to the spread of COVID. Now, I think you'll all agree we do not want to have to rely on a global pandemic to spread the word about pangolins, but it's an interesting phenomenon. In fact, I don't have a slide about it now, but any of you who've watched the recent film on Netflix, Kulu's Journey, which is a film all about pangolins on Netflix, it's a lovely film. Unfortunately, that caused its own spike because the pangolin is so endearing. It caused a spike for the search term, do pangolins make good pets? So that's our next mission, is to educate people to say, no, they do not. Anyway, this is, as we said before, I'm very big into my technologically driven marketing. So this is the kind of things that I look at. So during COVID, we were given an opportunity, a unique opportunity, in fact, when there were a lot of guides and trackers and rangers sitting at home not doing very much. So we were given a grant by the Tokomelo Trust, which is ex-President Ian Khama from Botswana, his trust. He gave us a donation to ask us to go and investigate what are the attitudes towards pangolins and pangolin sightings amongst the safari industry. So we sent out a survey to a whole load of guides across Southern and East Africa, and we asked them to fill in questions like, when did you see your last pangolin? How many pangolins have you seen? What was the pangolin doing? And asking questions like, how close did you manage to get to the pangolin, which is obviously an important thing, which I'll come to now. So what we realized was we took all of this information and we gave it to pangolin specialists, and we said, well, what can we do to try and educate people? So what we did was we created a free online course, which is available to anybody to do, which not only teaches people about pangolins, but also teaches people what to do when you see a pangolin. We've kept the course really short. It's only 15 minutes to complete. And if none of you have done so, maybe you could put in the chat, have you done the Pangolin Guardians course yet? If not, are you going to do it? It's a very simple course. As I said, it's free. We've also been translating it into, I think we're on about 12 languages, African languages, and we've translated it into Chinese as well, so that people can do the course. At the end of which you are awarded with a certificate which says you are now a Pangolin Guardian. And then you also have the opportunity to get yourself a Pangolin Guardian badge. I'm not sure if you can see this yet. There'll be a picture coming up in a minute where you can see it more clearly. So it's a fun, animated, engaging course that is suitable for kids, for adults, for guides, for rangers. We've tried to do that Disney thing where we've made it educational and entertaining at the same time, so for all ages. So please, if you haven't done so, go and check it out. So, sorry, we seem to be going the wrong direction. So module 1 of the course that we do, as I mentioned, there's 2 modules. The first thing is lots of facts about the 4 African pangolins. We dispel some myths. So, for example, are pangolins and armadillos related? That is answered in the course. But the idea is that we want to take part 1 and we want to celebrate pangolins as a really important part of Africa's natural heritage. So in the same way that China and the WWF have the panda, we want pangolins to be celebrated and revered in the same way. So that's why we try to make it a fun, engaging, talking about the pangolins' superpowers, their scales, their ability to claw through, rock and that sort of thing. And as I said, we've translated it into several languages. So that's the first module. At the end of the first module, then people get to do some questions, and then they move on to module 2. But what we soon realized was, in the effort to educate guides, it is also a really good opportunity to educate children. So we have designed the Pangolin Guardians education program as well, that we are now rolling out to schools in areas where you're likely to find pangolins and in areas where you might not find pangolins. As I said, the pangolin is emblematic of a species on the brink. And if we don't educate people about it, then it could be this generation's dodo. So we use this course as a way of educating people about pangolins and trying to, convince people that we need to do something, otherwise we're not going to have any pangolins left. So we partnered with non-profit organizations, we go to schools, we deploy them ourselves, we're busy deploying them all over the Kaza region. And the packs are sponsored by clients who go and donate these packs, and we go off and we deploy them. So it's lots of fun. There's colouring in books. We're aiming for kids around about the age between 8 and 12, which we think is the sort of the sweet spot where kids are going to be really amenable to this information. And you'll see later on, there's some information that we send with them, lots of fun stuff for people to do and learn about pangolins. So when they do that, each kid in the pack gets a Pangolin Guardian badge as well, and they get their certificate. In fact, I had a meeting this morning here in Kasane in Botswana with the lady who is the head of immigration, and she told me that her granddaughter came home the other day proudly with her certificate and her badge. So I've told her she needs to do it as well, so that she can have a badge too, to share the experience with her granddaughter. So it's a lovely moment this morning that I wanted to share with you. So module 2, now this is where it really gets interesting for the safari industry. When we asked people, how close did you manage to get to the pangolin? It was quite scary. Over 90% of people said they got within a meter of the pangolin. Now, the problem is pangolins get stressed really easily. When a pangolin is stressed, it rolls itself into a ball or it lies flat on the ground, and it's expending a lot of energy to stay in that state. Energy that it needs to then recoup by eating more later on. Pangolins, when they're stressed as well, also can get respiratory. They suffer from physical ailments from stress. So they can suffer from infections, respiratory problems when they get super stressed. And a pangolin will often move out of its territory. If it's stressed, it's gone. So if you're a guide and you see a pangolin and you get out and you get your clients out to come and take a photograph of the pangolin, the chances are that pangolin's going to move. And when a pangolin moves, it goes kilometers. So you might never see that pangolin again. Now, I'm not blaming the guides. The problem is nobody knew. So when we gave all of this information to the pangolin specialist, we came up with some very sensible pangolin viewing guidelines, which is part of module 2. I'm not going to go into all of them, but it's practical stuff like, please maintain 10 meters from a pangolin. Don't stake out a pangolin's burrow. Don't follow a pangolin into long grass in a vehicle. Very sensible things that hopefully we can get the safari industry to adopt. We are not a legislative body. We can't tell people what they can and cannot do at a pangolin sighting, but what we can do is educate people so that they understand that there are genuine jeopardy and ramifications, bad ramifications, if you harass a pangolin. Pangolins don't make a noise. They don't cry out. They don't look distressed. They curl into a ball, which is their natural defense. So if your clients are saying, I want to get out, I want to take a selfie with the pangolin, hopefully after this, they will think twice about it. So it has been endorsed by the African Pangolin Working Group, FAGASA, Joburg Vet, Kenya Wildlife Service. So it's not just us making up these rules. These are rules that we think should be adopted across the safari industry as a whole. And it is already. Singita's doing it, Wilderness, Curran Downey, more and more companies are doing it. So if you are from a safari company who has guides, please get them to do the Pangolin Guardians program. If you are a tour operator who is sending people to Africa, maybe include information about this in their pre-departure information so that it's both sides. So you don't have a client sitting at the back going, I want to take a photograph with the pangolin. Please, can I take a pangolin photograph? I'll give you a tip if you let me take a pangolin photograph, because the guide might well let them. So we have to educate both sides. The intention here is that we want to create an army of Pangolin Guardians across Southern and East Africa, if we can. From young, old, everybody needs to learn about pangolins and what to do when they see a pangolin. And this is a really cool story. So this is a pangolin for sale on Facebook Marketplace, of all places. So this was actually found by one of our clients, who was a Pangolin Guardian, who was sitting in the States, and they saw this and they were like, this can't be right. He can't be selling a pangolin on Facebook Marketplace. So they contacted us, and we were able to then initiate a sting operation through, not us personally, but we're not sting operation specialists, but we have lots of connections in law enforcement. They were able to get to the pangolin. The pangolin was taken to a rehab center, and the pangolin is now released into the wild. So being a Pangolin Guardian is all about being vigilant 24/7, 365 days of the year, because something like this could happen. You could see it on Facebook. You could hear about somebody posting something somewhere. But if you know there is an organization who can help, then you can do something about it. Selling a pangolin for 500,000 rand, that is not how much a pangolin is worth. But you can see what the temptation is for people if they see this and see that a pangolin is worth 500,000 rand. And we get a lot of these. We get a lot of these reports coming through from people trying to sell us pangolin. So it's a lot of effort to go and initiate, and this is supported by Pangolin Africa. So this is the Pangolin system. So if you all have your phones out at the moment, can you please take down this number, which is +27 72 726 4654. I'm sure that we'll send this out in a recording. We can send it out, but I'll give you a bit of time to take it. Now, if you see a pangolin, if you know anybody who sees a pangolin, please, can you report the sighting? Now, the pangolin might be running around the place. It could be absolutely free and fine. But what it does is you report this over WhatsApp. WhatsApp is totally encrypted, so nobody can intercept this message. We take that data and we put it on a secure offline database so that nobody else can access it. But the information is then used by law enforcement, conservationists, people planning conservation, and researchers who need the information. We go through a very stringent vetting process. But this pangolin, if you were to give this number to your clients and they happen to see a pangolin, they can do something with that information. If your clients have seen a pangolin in the past, they can go onto our website and record a pangolin historic sighting. Now, I have seen one pangolin, and let me know in the comments if you have seen a pangolin before, but I've seen one on my third ever game drive about 30 years ago. And to be honest, I didn't know what I was looking at, but I do remember it. But I thought, well, show me a line. I want to see something else. So I know where it was. I know roughly when it was. So you can go onto our website and record it as a historic sighting, because if it was there and it's still there, that means there's still a thriving population. If there was a pangolin there and we don't have any sightings, then that's a pangolin population that is in decline. So historic data is as important. Finally, if you see a pangolin that is injured, sick, or being trafficked, you can also use this number to contact us. We will then contact the relevant authorities, do an investigation, get to the pangolin, initiate whatever needs to be done, a rescue operation, a sting operation, something to get the pangolin, and then it gets to a center. I can't tell you how many reports we're getting at the moment, and it's increasing. And we even get people trying to sell us pangolins through the number. So then we pose as a potential buyer, set up a sting operation, get the pangolin. We had one in South Africa last week, a little pangolin, which was probably about a year and a half. She's now called Annie. It was named by one of the policemen. The people who had the pangolin were arrested, and Annie is now at the rescue centre that we support. She's been rehabilitated, and she will hopefully be released in the next month or so. So it does work. So please put the number in your phone. Thank you very much. That's my shout out for the day. Okay, how we can get involved. If you would like us to, we can build you a branded landing page with your logo all over it saying you have teamed up with Pangolin Africa to save a species. You can give it to your staff, you can give it to your clients, you can give it to your guides, your rangers, your trackers to go and do it. So it is then a collaboration between you and us from Pangolin Africa. And we just need to invite people to go and do the Pangolin Guardians course. But it's an invitation from you, not us. If you as an organization want to get more involved, you can do so, and then we will proudly have you as Pangolin Guardian partners. We'll put a link on our website, we'll put a badge on your website, and you can tell everybody that you are part of the fight. If you would like to get involved in educational programs, then we can also help with that. There are lots of organizations, I think Packing for Purpose, schools programs, that sort of thing. If you want to, and we've got a couple of tour operators who are doing this, if they've got a group travel, for example, they build in the cost of one of the Pangolin education packs. It's about, I think it's 5,000 Rand, so that's $300 per pack, which then goes and teaches 50 kids. That pays for us to go and deploy it. 50 badges, 50 certificates, information, a big flag for all the kids to hold up and celebrate being Pangolin Guardians. We can do that. And then we can also send you amazing video footage of the pack being deployed that you can then share with your clients. If you would like this to be part of your corporate social responsibility program, then we can do that too. So there's lots of opportunities. All you need to do is reach out to us and have the conversation. So there we go. This is a group of kids who did the Pangolin Guardians program. I hope the sound worked and you can all hear them shouting out that they're Pangolin Guardians. You can see the badge that's behind. They've all got those certificates. They've all colored things in. So it's really cool. I get videos like this all the time from Uganda, from South Africa, Botswana, Zimbabwe, all over the place. It's a very nice feeling to be able to do this. So there we go. Tour operators, get your staff and clients to do the Pangolin Guardians program, and please help promote good pangolin viewing protocols and behaviors, and get them disciplined. Lodge owners, please get your guides to do it. Educate your guides. Most guides don't know that pangolins can get stressed. So we're not out here to tell guides that they are being bad, they're doing things wrong. What we're trying to do is we're trying to educate people. One of the things in that survey they answered, how did you learn about pangolins? They're all learning amongst themselves from books, and the books don't generally cover these sorts of things, but they've seen senior guides taking photographs of pangolins, they've seen clients taking photographs of pangolins, so they think that's the norm and that's the okay. So we just have to change hearts and minds when it comes to that. And yes, as I said before, we can deploy education packs on your behalf, for your clients, for your company, however you like. So there we go. That's it. Thank you. This is our information, info at Pangolin Africa. Please go to our website. We've got FAQs, information about pangolins. You can record pangolin sightings. I've got an amazing film on YouTube called Eye of the Pangolin. If you want to go and watch that, it's a story about two people who travel around Africa trying to get all 4 pangolin species on film for the first time. I've just returned from the Northern Cape, where I made a film about us releasing another pangolin called Lucy, which is the real story about how much it really costs to rehabilitate a pangolin. So if you want to subscribe to our YouTube channels, that video is going to be coming out soon. So that's it. There we go. If you really, we are open to all sorts of suggestions. If you want to reach out to us, we can come up with all sorts of clever campaigns and ideas. But the main thing is we need to make sure that there's only one type of person in the world, and that's who knows what a pangolin is. So there we go. Thank you very much.
Wow, Toby, that was amazing.
Oh,
I
thank you.
was horrified that somebody wanted a pangolin as a pet. To be honest, why? But also, I love what you said about education on both sides, about education in the trade, but also a guiding program also for lodge owners, because I think it goes both ways. Um, and thank you, Laura. Let us wave to the people for the additional information in the chat for all of you to see. So I see Laura has shared the film and the Guardian course and the education pack, which is brilliant. And now we're coming up to a point where I open the floors for question and answers. If there's any questions for um if there's any questions for Toby or Laura. And while people are still cooking up the questions, I have a question.
Yeah.
I love the education packs. Is there anything else that you're doing in terms of community involvement, particularly at the parks that are closer where the pangolins are located? What else is there so that, does it inform part of the tour operator educational pack? If
Yeah.
you can elaborate on
So
that.
So we do. So the way that we try to teach people about pangolins is very similar. So we also go and engage with people who work at the parks departments, for example. Here I'm in Kasani at the moment, and we sit on the corner of 4 countries. So it's a real pinch point where pangolins are being trafficked through here. So we go and we talk to people at the customs department, the immigration department, if they can keep an eye out when they're inspecting cars. People are getting cleverer and cleverer about trafficking pangolins, and pangolins are often trafficked alive because they don't make a noise. They are easy to transport. We had somebody in the Northern Cape now who'd modified their bass speaker in the back of their car to make a hole to put the pangolin in and then closed it up. And somebody heard something moving in it and opened it up and there was a pangolin inside. So it's yes, we've got to educate, but we also, if we figured that if we educate the people, then people are going to start saying, hang on, this isn't right. You shouldn't have a pangolin. And we want people to do it, not because we're telling them that it's illegal, they're going to go to prison. The people poaching the pangolins are desperate people. But we want people to stop poaching pangolins because they want to protect pangolins, not because we're trying to use a stick rather than a carrot. That doesn't really work. You can't really explain that to people. But if we can create a generation of young people who are possibly, because of social media, slightly more involved in the environment and wanting to make a difference in their lives, that's where we need to go to. So, like with a lot of things, it starts with the youth. But to go back to your question, yes, we do. We engage with law enforcement, the judiciary. We're hosting an event in September in the Northern Cape to talk to judges and policemen and trying to get penalties for pangolin trafficking increased in the Northern Cape.
Oh, that's brilliant. I love that. There's a question about the education packs and how
Yeah.
many languages these are translated into, and if Swahili is one of them.
Yes, Swahili is one of them. We've got Swahili. So it's an interesting thing, actually, because we did it. So when you listen to it, you're going to listen to my voice doing the animation, the narration over the animation. So what we've managed to do, firstly, is do subtitles in the different languages. So we have Shona, Swahili, Zulu, Indabele. Obviously, we had to do Portuguese and French as well because of the Francophone and the Portuguese countries with Angola and Mozambique. My next step is I want to get local language voiceovers. Is my next plan. But what I've realized is English is a really compact language by about 30%. So the problem is I've got an animation that's 5 minutes, but if I translate it and do a voiceover in Setswana, for example, the video needs to be about 30% longer. So I'm working with the animators to slow down the animation to fit into the longer translation. So that's the next thing. If anyone out there wants to sponsor a translation, I'll put your logo all over the front of that video if you want to sponsor it. But get in touch. I don't know how much it's going to cost yet, but that's a plan that we're going to do.
Brilliant, brilliant. There's a question about, are there existing partnerships between safari operators and conservation NGOs that are focused on pangolin protection, and how can these be strengthened even further? And even to some extent, where the ones that are existing, where are they, and where is their gap, and where can that? Yeah.
So as you can see here at the bottom here, it says Pangolin.Africa teaming up to save a species. We realize that we can't do everything as one organization. And unfortunately, when it comes to a charismatic species like a pangolin, a rhino, an elephant, and things like that, you can have all these organizations and they're all a little bit siloed. Everyone's doing their own thing. So one of our things is to try and reach out to as many nonprofits as possible. And because I have connections through Pangolin Photo Safaris with the safari sector, for me to be able to introduce nonprofits to localized safari operators who want to support them, I'm all about that. So if you operate in the Lowveld, for example, we have 2 or 3 rescue and rehabilitation centers that are there. So we're happy to facilitate introductions, especially if you want to support a local nonprofit. So yeah, we like to think of ourselves as a conduit of information and potential funding between different organizations. As I said, Pangolin Africa is funded by Pangolin Photo Safari. So we're self-funded. We don't have to run around looking for funding the whole time. So instead, we can help other organizations get funding from operators, companies, and individuals who want to support their work.
Okay, okay. There was another question that disappeared, but I read it quickly and I think I can remember it. But it was about
I think I saw it.
the,
Was it release sites?
yes, it was release sites, and yes, how
Brenda.
can how are the release sites and rehab structures
Oh, this is a
identified,
big question. This
and
is a big
is
question.
there a need for more of those safe and protected areas?
Always.
Yes.
So currently, with the rescue centre in the Northern Cape, for example, we tend to release pangolins on large private farms, but they have to fit certain criteria. There has to be large enough space for a pangolin to disperse and find its own territory as far away from electric fences as possible. Electric fences are really problematic because pangolins walk along bipedally on their back legs and they hit the small tripwire before the pangolin before the fence and curl around the fence and get electrocuted to death. So electric fences potentially kill more pangolins than poachers. This is something we have to realize. So understanding fence structures at a potential release site. We will never, ever, ever release a pangolin on a property where pangolin viewing or monitoring is going to be marketed. That's not the point. We're not out there to harass. Pangolins are solitary. They want to be left alone. If you happen to see a pangolin, you can observe it at a distance, do so. But we get approached all the time by people saying, yeah, we'll take pangolins, no problems. And they want to then have, the ability to track the pangolins, to show the pangolins to their clients. This for us is definitely not the way forwards. However, we are working on an application process at the moment where lodges, game farms, game reserves, even hunting reserves, all of these people can apply to be a pangolin release site, and they will have to go through a strict process where firstly they need to tell us, are they in a pangolin home range? What sort of fence structure do they have? What sort of ant species and termite species do they have? Are they able to commit time to potentially rescuing a pangolin that's not doing so well and being able to relocate it and bring it back to us? So yes, we are finding ways. We do need more places to release pangolins because the more pangolins we're getting told about through Pangolin, the more they go into rehabilitation, the more they then need to be released back into the wild. So we will be announcing quite soon a criteria where you can apply to become a pangolin rehabilitation centre. But I will reiterate again, we will never release a pangolin on a property that wants to then use it for, come on, everybody, we know where the pangolin is. We're going to go and see it as part of our activity. That's not the point. It's a privilege to have a pangolin on your property, and it's not to be abused.
I think we all heard that.
I think sorry, I
Good.
sounded quite angry there. I'm like, oh,
No.
it's something that really annoys me. It really annoys me when people go, "Oh, I'll take care of a pangolin," and then before you know it, everyone is spending every night sitting outside the burrow that the pangolin uses. Pangolins have home ranges, so most guides, when they see a pangolin, will know where it is. But if you have now 3 or 4 vehicles staking out a pangolin burrow and the pangolin won't come out, now the pangolin doesn't feed, now the pangolin gets stressed, now the pangolin loses weight, this isn't the point.
It shows the passion in the work that you do, Toby, which I really admire.
I
Um,
can get a bit carried away. Sorry, Rod.
it's fine. It's fine. Are there any more questions from the floor? While the floor is cooking up any more questions, are there any success stories or one really positive story that you want to leave us with just before we all
Yes.
go about our
I've just
days?
released a pangolin. I've just released a pangolin called Lucy, who I was there. That's the one I made the film about. So if you want to watch the film, so Lucy was taken from the wild by somebody who thought that Lucy would make a good pet. And she was very young. She was only about 3 kilograms. So when they reach that size, they disperse from their mother and they head off to go and find their own territory. So obviously she was wandering around and somebody went, "Oh, look at that pangolin. I'm going to take it home and have it as a pet." So roll forward a few weeks. The pangolin's obviously not feeding. They don't realize that you can't just, feed the pangolin kitty, cat food or something like that, and it's going to be fine. So they did turn in the pangolin saying, "Oh, we saw this pangolin was thrown out of a truck by the side of the road and we thought we would bring it in." So the story doesn't quite match up. Anyway, Lucy came into the center. Lucy was dehydrated, lost lots of weight, was rolled in a ball, terrified of everybody. and she was in the rescue centre. It's called the Kalahari Wildlife Project in the Northern Cape. She was in there for 11 months until she could get up to a size when she was able to be released. We released her, we put a satellite tracker on her, we've got a VHF tracker, and we've just released her on a private game reserve, which actually has rhino on the private game reserve. So we're kind of riding off the back of the protection of the rhinos at the same time. So she's released on there, and I got a video sent through to me a couple of days ago watching Lucy rolling around in a massive pile of rhino poo. And she is happy as you can imagine. The theory is that, number one, they help scratch off any ticks or mites that she might have under her scales. But if you're walking around at night and you smell of rhino, stuff is going to get out of your way. So we think it might be a protection mechanism as well. So she wants, well, but she is happy. She's out foraging. We're tracking her on the satellite tracker, and we'll leave her. Once we're happy that she's all secure and safe, we will go and remove the satellite trackers, and she can carry on. And if Lucy is 2 years old, she might live for another 15 years. And pangolins have a pup every 1 to 1.5 years. So that means she can have 10 pups. Now, if those 10 pups go on, half of them are female, go on to have 10 pups, then that's another 50 pups. So within the space of 50 years, saving Lucy could have potentially saved about 200-300 pangolins. So there we go. That's a good story.
Amazing. I think that's a good place to end this webinar. If everybody
Brilliant.
agrees, this was a massively informative, very important webinar to have as
Thank
ATA
you.
to educate, but also let everybody know the opportunities that are there to get involved, to participate in protecting these species. And please don't keep them at home as your pets. But also to the
Right.
people, Sylvia and Brenda, who were lucky enough in the chat box to see pangolins, we're very jealous. And we hope one day when you come back on another educational webinar, there'll be a lot more people. But thank you so much, Toby, Laura,
No
for
problem.
your time. Thank you for this important webinar. And thank you everybody for tuning in.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you for having me.
Amazing. Thank you, everybody, and have a good Thursday.
Cheers. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.